Hi, this is Lynn Schnebley with Educating with Wisdom, and I'm the ambassador for Heaven's creating and protecting goddesses and archangels over life. So I'm just going to try to be brief. And the title of this is The Brotherhood of Man is Not in Heaven's Plan. Now, why do I say that? At no point does Jesus say that we're going to have the Brotherhood of Man going on here. This is something This is a later discussion. And the problem with the Brotherhood of Man is that in order for this to work, an absolute low baseline is required. The other problem with the Brotherhood of Man, which we're seeing today, is that the Brotherhoods have actually planned on killing most of those people that they don't think are good. They've decided to isolate them rather than educate them necessarily. And that's because the whole brotherhood is not nurturing and is not involved in life. And it never was. So let's talk about, for a moment, let's talk about the creation story, because it's wrong from the get-go. Besides the fact that it's she creates in the beginning and not he, it's a feminine a feminine verb. Before the baseline of everything, and God said, "Let there be light," there had to be something before God. There had to be something. And I will not figure it out in this lifetime, and you're not going to either. But when it comes down to it, it's not light. It's matter. So the whole preponderance of this age that everything is light and everything is the sun and everything is about the sun and everything is about energy is not the case. It's about matter. We need energy in order to work. But other than that, we still need matter to have energy. And the energy is only needed to help support life. Everything is built around matter. And at the bottom of that matter is a little string, a little musical note that all comes together or is disharmonic. And that is what says, "Let there be," as it comes together. The greater being says, "Let it be." And until the Brotherhood understands that it's about matter, and it's about the conservation and the taking care of matter, we're not getting anywhere. The other thing that's important to understand is when we look at the Old Testament, is that everything became the God, and God went through and gobbled up everything that was good, that was feminine. Was because every time the male-dominated religions come in, the only women they have are sex women or highly dysfunctional women or highly dysfunctional goddesses. And that's always a problem. And they know that across the case. They know when we go from matrilocality and we go on to the other, because they can see that there is a precipitous nosedive in terms of behavior. But the other thing that's important to realize is that women really do have more DNA than men. So how do you talk about the Brotherhood of Men? How do you talk about the Brotherhood of Man? How do you talk about the Brotherhood? How do you say man and brotherhood when women have more DNA and more overall prefrontal grade matter than men do? How do you reduce this down to the Brotherhood of Man? And that's why it's not in Heaven's plan. All right? Now, stepping back from that, the other problem with the Brotherhood of Man is that they've given men right to have, in Africa, all within the Brotherhood. They've all been within the Brotherhood. They have female genital mutilation, and that is slavery, by the way. So let's call it what it is. It's ownership and slavery. And they have scriptures that do nothing but hate women, and that's all within the Brotherhood of Man too. And then they have pornography, and that's all within the Brotherhood of Man too. And then they have mining, and they have all these industries that produce nothing but toxic waste, and that's all under the Brotherhood of Man. And I've never really heard the church, except for the last few years, say anything against it, which is incredible, because I built a passive solar house, literally started building it with my former husband when I was 28 years old. We started looking at designs when I was 27. We had 2 compost bins. We had a cold storage room downstairs. I did diapers. We had a wood stove that we would then cook on as well in the wintertime, and we did all those basic things. We really did. When I was 23, I was a part-time manager at a natural foods co-op in State College, Pennsylvania, called Our Store Food Co-op. The church should have been involved in all these things for all these years. It should have looked at it and said, because I mean, I'm going to be 62 in a few weeks, and goodness knows we knew about the garbage and the problems back then. Everything, almost everything in Our Store Food Co-op, most of it, I should say, was all sold in bulk. We had different types of feta, we had different types of tofu. Okay, we had our oil, besides our honey. And you could go to other stores. We had other stores in upstate New York and in Fredericton that did the same kind of thing, besides different types of beans. And I think our noodles always came packaged, but different types of rice and bulgur and all these things came in bulk. And you would go in with a tier weight and you would do all of this, and there was no garbage involved in it. You were just using your own things and going in and getting it and having a tier weight. So many of our groceries came without any packaging whatsoever, and the foods were natural foods. But because the church, whether it's Islam or the Christian church or the Catholic church or the Jewish, these are run because they're developed and run by dead men. Dead men who are a part of the Brotherhood of Men, who are never going to be good enough. And they won't be good enough until they realize that Jesus and all of those were correct in the Old Testament. Once, actually it happens twice, and I'll tell you where. Twice in the Old Testament, 3 times in the New, that a man will leave his mother and father, will cleave with his wife. Because the Brotherhood of Man is bad. You need to have a matrilocality. It's bad. So please stop talking about it, because the Brotherhood is the ones that have figured out the gay brigade with HIV, and the church backs it, and our medical professions backed it, and it went on in research. They set up this pandemic. They set up the wars. They set up the other things. It's ridiculous. And the church is behind the whole damn thing. This is a show. This is an Apollo show. If anybody knows anything about the 5th house, about Leo, it's not leadership. And the 5th house is over the church in Rome. The 5th house is over the church in Greece. They think Jesus is Apollo and Horus. Haha, I already said Horus is actually HRU and originally was the Hurrians. And we're not Apollo. We bring you agriculture. Not your Thracian war, dragons, your galley priest. The reason why they have all those male priests, and the reason why they're so effeminate and begging and all those other kinds of things, is because that's how they got away with getting rid of female priestesses. The church should have been active, absolutely active, in having a natural foods cooperative that it was hooked up with. It should have been absolutely active in having these things, in bringing in older people and younger people, teaching them how to work this, how to bring in, talking about the agriculture. That is part of our background. The only people that are linked up to heaven are people that understand that agricultural background, and that is all there is. Wheat was to be our meat. So the pastoralists, the Bedouins, the polygamists, all of these people are not reflective of heaven. You're not reflective of heaven. And we have the Demraj. I can't remember if that's how it's produced, but it is the beast with the head of the lion and the body of the dragon. That is the Judah married to the Thracian, and it tears the world apart. It just tears it apart. And these were the Phoenicians. They were the Phoenicians. I've already told you, Thrace dug up things. They were so gold greedy it wasn't funny, and they went to war constantly with women. Both Islam and Rome are built on rape. What kind of brotherhood of man are we talking about? As you're killing off the populations, and you still in churches do not talk about holistic health, do not have workshops, don't talk about the cost. What can we expect as we're elderly? Everybody talks about looking after the elderly. That's important, but understand the elderly way overestimate themselves. And God never told you you had to stamp out babies like nobody's business. That was Satan that told you that. God wants quality, not quantity. God needs women to be scientists. The same people that came down here and gave you agriculture were scientists. The really smart ones, the Hurrians, the good ones, they're scientists. They know what they're doing. They're good business people. They have ethics. They're not like the cow, Leah, and the ewe, Rachel. And if you think the matrilocality is just something that Jesus discussed, it says it in the beginning in Genesis, and I already told you Abraham is a made-up thing, and it's done to entrap you, but they all crawl into Sarah's grave. All of them. With one wife. What does that tell you? And Sarah was entitled to be there because she was a Hurrian. It was Abraham, or Abram, or whatever his name was, because it certainly wasn't Ava's Raham. It wasn't Ava's uterus. But that's the entrapment, and you're the Goyim. The Goyim. The Brotherhood of Man is the Goyim, and the Goyim are never going to be good enough, and the church doesn't stop it. The other problem with the Brotherhood of Man, and this is what's happened, and Revelations discusses it, is what is above is below. In Revelations, John doesn't know Jesus. Okay, they don't know each other, and it's just a vision. And his Jesus is over the dead. He's over Hades. So don't plan on going to heaven because your God is over the dead. He's over Hades. He's fantastical. He has a bimouth. He has a die mouth. He has a stoma that's been cut into two pieces. That's what it is in Greek. And out of this two piece, he's got two swords that come out. He's absolutely diabolical. And you buy it hook, line, and sinker because that's the God of the dead. So when they say what is above is below and we're all rising together, they're bringing back all the dead, just like the Hindus said they were going to do, just like Daniel and Micah said they were going to do. They discuss it going on in in Isaiah 14, and they discuss it in Revelations. The dead are here. And some of us are back to help. But you're here. How else do you have a drag queen story hour who's a demon showing up in Michelle Obama's library? Well, that makes perfect sense considering the penis that I think I saw on her. What's the dead? Let's talk about for a moment what are cultural rights, because all of you can't step on anybody's feet, although the Noahide tells you, and that's the true Noahide is for Habas, the laws, the the seven, which are then broken down. It's not some gay rights thing. The church doesn't stand up and talk about this. Judaism doesn't stand up and talk about it? Oh, of course not. The Jews have been out there promoting homosexuality like nobody's business, and so does the church. I mean, in order to have such misogyny, to take knowing right from wrong, to cover yourself up, and to be more like God and ready to go out and take on that farming and take on that hardship, the church, because of its Greek, ugly, Thracian, Phoenician, because they wanted women's properties, took the knowledge of knowing right and wrong as being a good thing and dumped it on its head, upside down. So the only people who represent heaven are those people. The Bedouin don't. The polygamists don't. The Thracians don't. The people that have dragons in their culture, forget it. You're not going anywhere. What do you think? Where do you think you're going? So the only thing you have is between what is above or below. So we said, okay, you can come back as an animal. And for some of you that don't know what a male or a female is, we'll let you be mostly below. You'll be worms. There you go. What is this brotherhood about? What is culture about? What is a cultural right? Why would you think it's a cultural right to have female genital mutilation? Why is that a cultural right? That's not a cultural right. That's a blasphemy against heaven. It's in accord with hell, and it's a blasphemy against heaven. It's not a cultural right to engage in transhumanism. It's not an act of science to engage in these things. That's not science, because you have no idea of where you're going in the future. Where are you going with this? When we talk about supporting AIDS in Africa, I'm going to tell you, the church has helped this to grow. It has helped the problems to grow because the church itself, or the homosexuals themselves, need you to engage in that sin in order to justify their behavior. They need to bring you into the same problem, and that's why we have this coronavirus that has HIV malaria markers, so that we can all be sick with them. We have no idea what the long-term effects are. And when they give you their vaccines and you have them back to back like that, it's ixnay. Oh, a few of you won't get it. But because nothing is actually being reported, and because nothing regarding these viruses or vaccines, you can't report or deal with anything on them, you can forget it. Just forget it. What is a cultural right? Your cultural rights are things like, I like wearing a purple dress and she likes wearing a brown dress with fringes. I like having more chilies in this particular culture, and they like having more garlic, or they don't like having garlic in another culture. But all of them are involved in holistic health and herbology and things like that. These are cultural rights, not child brides, not selling women as sex slaves, not sending young boys to war. These are not cultural rights. Religious institutions. Religious institutions are not about giving some of your men the benefit of resources while sending some of your other men off to war when they're kids. And of course, your religious group, we know of a man in my family when I was growing up, Father Florak, and the parents were planning on the older brother to become a doctor, and they sent Father Florak in to be a priest when he was 16. He was like sacrificed. We're going to let all the energy go into the oldest son, and that son is going to go in, and he's going to be in the church, and who knows, maybe he'll take off, but he's never going to have the other resources. How many men are handed over like that? Instead of using what, birth control, you've got to hand your sons in to prostitution and to be priests. And then we have these vile things in there that keep the whole process going. We have a pope that sits in a building that looks like a big snake. Really? With 13 penises going around Rome. And Constantine the Great was worshiping himself with a big statue of him naked with rays coming out of his head because he had an Apollo complex in Constantinople after he became a Christian. Oh no, I don't think so. And I say to the Hindus, you have holy temples with people having sex in front of them, and the same thing happens in Egypt. What's wrong with you? You don't know to cover up your goodies? Well, this is the Brotherhood of Man. The Brotherhood of Man is to go out and corrupt humanity so that we can all be corrupt together. That's what Revelations warns you about. Those who would corrupt and destroy the earth. So in our church, we have priests who believe that they have a relationship with Hades, and they have no hope to actually go to heaven. It's only near-death experiences that let people think that there's anything like heaven. But of course, they all come back. And they refuse to be honest. Islam and none of these places actually come out and say, you know, we've lied about this whole thing, ladies, we really have. We can't do it this way, we have to do it that way. We cannot continue to let women and men who cannot take care of their children have children. They don't, but we don't want to kill you, but we still need to stop what we're doing. And you know what? We can't just develop women to be cows and sheep. Because that is the Brotherhood of Man. You won't even let women have a true discussion in the dialogue. And for heaven's sakes, they went after me with impunity. Here's the problem. They're not willing. They're killing you. I mean, this is a moot issue. Your priests are standing by as you're being slaughtered. They took the lowest of the lowest of the lowest roads. And as Jesus said, and St. Paul, I don't have any place for cowards. That's the Brotherhood of Man. The Brotherhood of Man is toxic waste and cowards who absolutely refuse to confront, truly confront and repent. And they're willing. They are willing to kill the people rather than be honest. There is a very good possibility that I am in a program, and I'm talking in a program, as Elon Musk has warned, because I get a lot of breakthrough. But that means I was sent here and went through all of this, as Micah said. Micah in chapter 4 says, I'm going to inflict her. But what it really says is, I'm going to bring her my evil. Meaning I have to see the evil that God wants me to see before I can get up and be the daughter of Zion, which is the Koreans. And it's because men were not able to get through this. Let me come out of this and show you something for a moment. This particular person, oh, I guess that's done, 1% uploaded. The difference between the Son of Man and the Son of God. And he actually still keeps getting it wrong. He keeps saying the Son of Man, and he cites Daniel. He cites Daniel 7:13. So let's go in and see Daniel 7:13. And what does 7:13? And behold, and it doesn't say with, it says people, clouds. People, clouds of, or clouds. We're never quite sure with that I at the end. People, clouds, heavens, the, as, and this is like creating sun. So it's like creating sun. So it's like creator, mortal. Anash means mortal. It does not mean man. Arriving. This may or may not be he. I'm not going into that. But look at the word anash. And look at the word creating. And look at this. It's not with, it's people. In fact, I think at some later point it uses the word people in it, but I can't remember where it is. Oh, peoples of the leagues and the languages of him. Give dominion and glory and the kingdom and all the people, nations. And sometimes, oh, I know, sometimes I'm looking at female verbs. So it's interesting. Yeah. All right. So here it is with, so it's people, clouds, heavens, the son of mortal arriving. And this could actually be a she. Here we go. Oh, wait a minute. Where was that? Mortal son arriving. Oh, I know what it is. Arriving. That E, mortal, creating mortal, that can also be a form of she. But that's a female, verb as a female ending. Okay? Yeah. And that E is also a female ending. So we're having a problem here with the endings. Big time. Let me see what else they cause. They're not being honest about a lot of what's going on. And they've set you up for that. So if those are female endings, now what? Yeah. So this is this is actually, look at this. People, and this is peoples. Take that MI off here for the plural. Okay, and you have people. People, clouds, heavens, the, as, and they have creating, it should be creator, mortal. She arrives. This is a variation of Hava. All right. It's very different, but let's just look at the mortal. Nothing there says Son of Man. Nothing. It says Son, mortal. Or it says Creator, mortal. Creating, mortal. Creator, mortal. Like a son. Creator, mortal. Bara, with the A at the end, is feminine, creator, creating, creator, feminine, mortal. And then we go into, but it's still mortal. It's not Ben Adam. It's Bar Anash. We've been taught this. It's been used. They're not being honest. Okay. So I discussed the cultural right. We discussed a bit about environmentalism. And I discussed that matter has to come first. So it's really not the Brotherhood of Man. And the other thing in Micah, or what's necessary, is the reason why they want the Brotherhood of Man. Oh, I want to talk about the Catholic Church. And I'm still listed as Catholic and Episcopal. But the Catholic Church really failed. If we take a look at slavery and education and all those things happening in Catholic countries, they're not making it. They've been exporting people into northern countries, Germanic countries, and we've been growing and growing and building and building and growing, trying to keep up with all these people coming in instead of being able to sort of flatline and figure out what we're doing. You keep throwing your failures out at us. That has to stop. The church uses, it fails across the board. In fact, if I take a look at the church coming in, the church came in part so that it could get its gold and make sure that it looked after its people, but it needed to get its cut of its gold and all this other thing. I mean, the notion that the Vatican or that the Orthodox Church, because it sent people out to the United States and to Canada because of its failures. You failed. Its failures. The entire Russian Revolution, what led up to it, the church failed because it didn't properly teach Jesus. And it gave us Galley for priest, Phrygian Galley. I have to say, and I'm going to reach out, the best thing that happened is we closed down the Vatican and we put the churches, and it comes under the Virgin, yes, under Guadalupe, because your sick chicks are not right. And your church that supports you, you who have created this god-awful mess, saying that you represent heaven when you have no relationship with it, and you're standing by watching the people be destroyed who worship Apollo. And the fifth house is nothing but arts, games, and playing. That's Leo. And the 4 is not Aquarius, it's Cancer. Which is now that broken up lobster. Anyway, I'm tired. You're shutting the place down again. I have needed to put this case out. You have no relationship with heaven. Elon Musk, his children were all in vitro fertilized. And his deal is to figure out how to destroy people and do this. Why would he think he should go into the future, or his children should? All of these people who believe that they're better than everybody else, why would they think they couldn't be honest enough to say to people, you know, we have built these things based on people, and we now know they're all wrong because the archaeology, the translations, the linguistics, none of it's wrong. It's actually this. And look, there's the genetics. Women actually have more DNA. I mean, we got to change this whole thing. Instead, you do this, and you think you're superior. And all that discussion in media and that about love, when you're isolating everybody and lying to them left and right, and you think you should go on. So maybe when enough of us who have come into this program and have tried to make changes, the necessary changes, are gone, then maybe we'll come back into this earth and I don't know what God has planned. I know that she's over the galaxy, and in this program the galaxy is by the center is up by Sagittarius, and it's not by Leo, so you got all these things wrong. And it's not about light, it is about sound and little things wiggling, and matter comes before light, and like everything about what you came up with was wrong. And it's not about who has the most, because what is the most? I fought so hard for all these years to have nothing. But I have more than you, because I have really good friends. I have Jesus and I have St. Paul. I have angels and archangels. Even though you've isolated me. But that you've done this. And I hope I am in a program, because I can't believe people would do that. I can't believe you'd be so cowardly to do this. I suppose I have to get that thing in for Trump, so I'll get up in the morning and do it. But really, he would have sat by and watched me die too. It doesn't matter. But it's not about Trump now, is it? It's about God for me. how could you think? How could you think that this is what you're doing is easier or makes more sense than just letting everybody know what's really going on? And you know what? The church would not help me, and I offered to give them the immunity that they needed if they just helped me out the problem. Jesus, help me. Amen.